Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the next Wasteless World Talks with Bill and Kevin and myself. We will ride the future on the back of language, and today it will be very special ride because instead of riding an English horse, we will ride a Czech one because the term today is Czech and it sounds Země. And I will show you how it's written so that you know what we are speaking about. And Bill and Kevin learned about this term 1 minute before the start. So let's see, Bill, if you close your eyes and you hear the term Země, does anything came in front of your...
Nothing. It means nothing. It meant nothing to me 2 minutes ago.
Okay. And to you, Kevin, have you been fast enough to check the vocabulary?
Nope. I have no idea at all.
So 2 weeks ago, the word was humble. Do you remember? And one of the definitions of humble was to be grounded. Walk in the sand, walk with your bare feet in the forest or across the field, be one with the earth. And the word was grounded, and humble is like grounded, right? You're not up in the clouds someplace, you're grounded. So Google told me that this word, which looks like Zeem to me, say the word again, Michael?
Země.
Země. Mr. Google says that the synonyms for that are country, ground, land, earth. So we can pick up on the conversation 2 weeks ago. I think it's a very good word. And as time goes on, and we're no longer an agrarian world, most of the places, and we've lost touch with the ground, with the earth. Nothing brings me more pleasure than planting in the ground and then watching something grow, but getting the dirt on my fingers and dealing with life and new life. So I like the word, and I think we've, as a world, we've gotten away from that word, and we need to get back to it.
It's right. So you know what it is right now, Kevin, because it was explained.
No,
okay, because it was.
Bill is right.
If you ask Google or any other translation device, even AI, it will generate 3 answers. Is the term which is used for Earth as a planet? Is the same term we use in Czech for soil or ground? And the same term is used for country. This is what you will get. So if I say country, America is a country. So America is Země, if you say it in Czech. The interesting part, there is one meaning which none of the vocabularies deliver. And this is if you separate the first 2 letters and the last 2 letters. Země, which means from me, from inside out. This means Země. And if you take all this together, it's very interesting because last time, you remember, we spoke about embrace. And there was 1 English term, but 9 Czech different words. And this time I said, okay, let's do it this way. Let's take the Czech one and try to transfer it in a way, because I just checked how many words. I checked Google, how many words has English vocabulary. We did it many times before, and usually there was 500,000. This time it delivered to me 1 million. And Czech vocabulary should have 350,000. But in fact, there are so many meanings behind 1 word in Czech that I think that the meanings can be much bigger than 1 million at the end. And the difficulty of Czech language is not in the grammar, it's complicated. But generally, it's in the understanding of the meaning which is hidden inside the word. And that's so wonderful, you know. And because I have the same event, but they have the advantage, the noon people, let's call it them, so they know the term one day ahead. So they has been able to check in vocabulary before we join. For you, you are special, so I decided to give you only 1 minute.
So what you just said, Michael, there is there's a saying in Russia that you cannot understand Russia with your mind. So you went to Google and Google said there's 300,000, but that's a Google answer. A Czech answer is probably a couple million, right?
It will be so. Yeah, it's quite interesting. I will show you something. Yesterday, I received from New Factory, I received a set of samples, a box of samples of something which get obsolete. Can you guess what is this? You know, it's quite big. If you compare it to my hand, it's quite big. I'm 180 big, so it's small. It's about 8 centimeters diameter, and it's made from plastic. What do you think it can be as an original product? And just to tell you, it's being thrown away after one and single use. So it's a single use product.
Is it a filter?
No.
Is it a part? If it's thrown away after one use, then it sounds like it's a part of a medical device or something. That there's some rules that you have to throw it away. No.
Some kind of packaging.
I will show you the original. It's a thread on it. And I don't know how it's called in English, but generally you put thread on it, and then you saw and then you do this stuff. And this is professional, so this is industrial size. So usually on a saw machine you have the small one, but this is an industrial one. So
it's a spool.
Spool, exactly. And can you imagine that this is very hard plastic? It's not soft. I will not crush it with my hands, and probably hardly crush it with my leg. So it's very strong, and still after one and single use, it's thrown away.
Why do they throw it away?
That's a good question. Maybe the supplier is in China. I don't know, maybe it's too far. But if you just now erase what I said, that what it is, tell me what you will see or what you will do with it if you don't know what it is.
Michael, this goes back to one of the rules that we came up with several years ago. Any engineer who is designing a product, whether it is a cell phone or a paperclip, the last page of that design document has got to be alternative repurposing things, so that you and I don't need to, try to guess.
And they are every day generated more than 1,000 pieces.
Really?
Wow.
Which lands on a landfill.
And never goes away.
So when I saw this, it was a shipment, quite a big box with a lot of textile, rest, and so on. And this was in between. And the first what catch my mind, and what I see is the lampshade. You know, because it has a hole inside. You just put it on. You have these LED lamps which do not heat generally. They just produce the light. And I invited some of the colleagues, and one of the girls says, "It's a toy for my boy." And the next one, it says, "It's a great massage device." You know, 5 people came and 5 ideas. But none of those ideas came, it should be wasted. Not a single one. And that's about the ground, that's about the coming back, that's about Země, that's about all what we should do. We should think, you know. And for you, this day will be the day when you learn the first Czech word. Maybe it will help, maybe it will not. We don't know, but why not? That's the beauty. So, Kevin, you was too silent until now.
So I was actually thinking about that words have roots which go way, way, way back, and then they diversify. And it'd be so interesting I discussed with a friend of mine that we make a dictionary called the Chaser, where we chase back the original origins of each word. You know, where they come from. So is it a Latin word? Is it a Greek word? Is it does it come from India? Wherever the source is, and then, you know, a Viking word, and then really try to figure out what the original meaning means in today's world. So, for example, the Viking word for memory is minda, which these days we use in English as the mind. And I think it's so interesting that it has changed from its original meaning, which was memory, to our modern meaning, which is the mind. And how are the two connected? How did they part ways? I think it's so fascinating.
I would be fascinating about the process, because there has been different meanings in the time, and then it stabilized something like a sinusoid, and then it stabilized in one term, which we just know everybody understand the same. It will be fascinating. And I think this can be a tool for AI generally, because they can go through large databases and so on. So it can be quite interesting, quite interesting.
If you were to continue that study, Kevin, this is a fascinating period in time to be doing that, because the younger generation is recreating the English language. Sometimes when my daughter or son-in-law speak to me, I haven't the foggiest idea what they just said, right? Because they have morphed the words to mean something else. In fact, you guys um, have a word for that. You say, oh, the far right has hijacked that word and it now means something different. Well, the younger generation does the same thing. They hijack the words, give them a different meaning, and somehow every 15-year-old in the country knows what that means, but I don't.
I think the great thing about language is that it's living. And it develops. It has a life of its own.
And it's wonderful to watch, you know, and it's wonderful to come back to see some old word, take it out of and people are surprised if you introduce it again. And so it's so fascinating. And unfortunately, many words get lost on the way. But it does not mean that and we have some of them in our talks, it doesn't mean they cannot come back. It's just, I will not say the pressure of society or of a development, you know, like the king. You know, king was in UK, in some few countries. Today is king in the US, and according to the times. And when I saw it as an official picture presented by White House, you know, I thought to me, what the hell I am looking at?
Yeah, I think the language may change quite a bit in the next 4 years. Left will mean right, right will mean left, up will mean down, black will mean white.
It will, and this is why it's so important to have such a discussion about the language and using the language, the understanding, not for us to analyze every single word. We are not analyzing, we are just talking about it. And that's a very different thing, because from our discussions, we deliver wake-up calls. The people listen to that and they say, okay, so if this is about this word, which I never thought about, and this is the same process around in our heads, what will be with this other word? You know, and it's so fascinating, so fascinating.
So the word language is, you say language is living. I never thought about that. But previously we have said that the future arrives on the back of language. So language is taking on a whole personality. What else is it about language that we have not specifically pointed to? I'll bet you there's 100 other either sayings or realities about the word language.
I think one of them is generally we can assign it to age, you know, because if you will speak with someone of your age, the young people will understand, and without looking at you, they will understand you are older because you will use a different language.
So in this country, when somebody says thank you, I was always taught to say you're welcome, right? But the younger generation doesn't say that anymore now, and so this is how you can tell the age of the respondent. They'll answer, say thank you, and they'll say no worries or no problem, or it's completely different from you're welcome. And in fact, it means something different, and I don't like it.
No. But imagine when you, if you're working in the 70s in information technology, you were suddenly faced with a whole raft of things that didn't have names. And I guess the temptation is to take an existing name and adapt it, rather than try to invent a new word, which is going to be extremely hard to get anybody to adopt.
On the other hand, it's hard, but I love it. I love to invent new terms. You know, Industry 5.0 was one of those, but I love it. And I do it in Czech quite frequently, combining terms and doing, because it's so beautiful. And at the same time, you can track, you leave a footstep behind. Because if you take an old term and you just transfer it, it was there before you. But if you develop a new one, there was none. So it's you who is the creator. And this is the footstep which stay behind you. And it's so great. I just have a discussion yesterday and today about the meaning of life. So we would like to live meaningful. And can we define what meaningful means for us? Because it developed with the time. You mentioned it many times, Bill, that first you need to put food on the table, and then we reach a stage when meaningfulness means something completely different to us, all of us.
Your meaning in life evolves. If you do not have meaning in life, does that mean that you do not want life? So I just feel so meaningless. Does that mean that I don't want to live anymore?
Good question. I just had yesterday one discussion in the Talks About Nothing, and it was the guy who was from Bulgaria, of my age, about a little younger, and he deal with longevity, but in a quite a different way. So he does not sell any pills or machines or so. He tried to improve the human health through practicing, through going to nature and so on, quite a natural way, let's say. And he said something very interesting. He said, we should not wait for age. We should find a meaning of the age, something like that. So it was so interesting. And it was exactly the point why I have this social ways and why I don't see us as the old guys who just sit and wait for rent or whatever. No, we found our meaning. We found our, what does it mean? The meaningfulness. And that's so great. And this discussion is part of it because we are really changing the world. And that's so great.
I think it would be really interesting to actually sit down and figure out what words are missing from our language.
I like that.
And that will be very difficult because, you know, it will be the same like when I enter and I say, I do not want to manage your waste. I would like to prevent it happen. And everybody think, okay, you would like to manage? I said, no, we like to prevent it to happen. Because the people don't fear if you lost something which you don't know that you lost it. You don't know what it was. You just simply do not remember. The only way how you can get it will be to get the old books, transfer it, compare it to currently used language, and then there will be some results which will not be there at all. And with these results, you can work with and then find out what's going on. It will be very interesting. It's enough if you take the translation of Shakespeare and the original.
I was just thinking about Shakespeare. That's right. So many words that he invented.
I was just listening to one stand-up comedian from the US, and they are mostly brilliant. But this one, he said, you know, he was a teacher, I think, and he said, you know, when I read the books from the middle century with the old language, I realize I do not understand. So I am teacher, and I will not be able to read fairy tales to the 15th century old children because I will not understand. And he has learned, he has memorized full story of the three piglets, but in the very old language. And he, for 5 minutes, he speaks this so brilliant. The audience is laughing, unbelievable. It must be very hard to learn, but he is really great in that. And this is exactly what you said, Bill. If we compare the old and new explanation, I don't know, is it common in the US or in the Denmark that you have the old classics rewritten in a short form? So in small booklets that you understand the overall picture, but 500 pages reduced to 10.
And the meaning changed. So, for example, in Little Red Riding Hood, the original, I've not seen the original, but when I was growing up, the wolf breaks into the grandmother's house and eats her. If you look at a current story of Little Red Riding Hood, they gloss over that. They don't say eats her, right? So in the modern fairy tales, nobody's dead, nobody gets eaten, nobody, you know, it, we have changed that and we have taken some humanity out of these fairy tales, right? I think that kids need to understand that there are things that you can do that are going to get you eaten, right? Otherwise, it's simple and there are no consequences, right?
You know, I will say that this is the next reason to learn Czech. Our fairy tales are still the old way. And I think the Russian will be very similar. So we have dragons, which are eaten princesses, and so on. There's a lot of killing. So
Do you have Baba Yaga
yes,
in Czech? Yeah.
we know her from the Frostman fairy tale. Do you know the Frostman? No, Děda Mráz, Děd Maroz. This is the Santa Claus in Russia. And there is a very famous fairy tale movie. Look for it, or I will find it. It's in East Europe. It's every Christmas is running. And there is Baba Yaga. And it's a unbelievable, well-done movie. It's 70s or 80s, I think 70s. but it was great. So it was great. I don't know if it's translated in English, don't know, but it was really 2 hours, I think, 2 hours movie. So standard movie, a fairy tale. Baba Yaga was there, and her house, which is on the leg of chicken leg or whatever how it's called.
Yep.
Hero, of course, and a lot of things. So it's quite a great movie.
I heard this really interesting thing from there's an American FBI, one of these profiler guys, and they were asking how come serial killers are such a modern phenomenon? You know, does it reflect upon our society and the way we do things? And he said they're not a modern phenomenon. So what do you think a werewolf is? And I thought that was so interesting because, of course, we make a myth, and that was the whole point of fairy tales, was to, you can issue warnings, you can tell children how to behave, how to be careful in a mythical form, which is a lot, in a way, it's more entertaining and not quite as terrifying as thinking that your next door neighbor could be killing 30 people a year.
And I think the warning, as Bill asked, the warning are necessary. If we just paint the world with just bright colors there, and the first rain will come, the people will be scared, and they are scared. Of course, is it the reason that they would like, somebody would like, keep us scared? Probably yes.
Yeah. And also these stories are, you know, the more entertaining they are, that's how we passed on information in the old days. When we didn't read or write, it was all told in story format.
And you remember a story of this kind much better than you remember something which is boring, of course, because it's somehow exciting or whatever. And you look, when you go to forest, I'm sure everybody look behind the trees whether the wolf is there or not. So we have a slightly different version, but the wolf is eating the grandmother. That's part of the story.
I think at the end of the story, the hunter comes along and kills the wife, the grandmother, and then takes his knife and cuts the wolf's belly open and rescues the grandmother. So it's a happy ending.
We have two endings. Second ending is the same, just the wolf does not get killed, but instead of the grandmother, he gets stones filled in the abdomen, and then it's so, and he still living, but with the stones in his body.
But perhaps the grimmest, I don't know if it is actually a grim fairy tale, but the story of the Pied Piper. I mean, that is certainly not a happy ending. What happened to all the kids?
You know, we asked several times if we do believe in coincidence. We do not. I have today in the morning Charito, who is from Philippines, in Talks About Nothing in the English version. Kevin, he mentioned the same story 8 hours ago.
It's synchronicity.
It's really unbelievable. And that's because we all live on Země, one planet. We are all connected. We just don't feel the connections. I just had a call in Czech with a guy whose business was to make the industrial floors. And after that, he changed his business or extended his business to make the lines on the floors. So the safety lines and walking and so on. So there's a lot of lining work. And he really developed greatly. So he's one of the biggest in the country right now, and he can paint a line everywhere, I will say. And when I talked to him, I told him, you know, you are not dividing, you are connecting by the line, because it's from one side to another, it's connection. And he looked at me and said, I never thought about the line this way. And that's exactly the wake up, you know, that's exactly the point where we see the right things.
You know, the recent studies have been published about how trees talk to each other, right? They do communicate with each other. Bushes, trees, everything. It's not a one particular um, type of tree or something, but living things communicate with each other by electrical signals, by chemical signals, and so it's the same with human beings. We talk to each other. Galene and I can be walking by the ocean, and she will say exactly what's on my mind at the exact second that I was about to say something about whatever the subject was. She'll say it. And I think that that happens um, between people we don't even know, right? Um, so people who don't believe that, maybe they just haven't opened their mind to believe that. I, for example, have spoken with my mother. She's she's been dead 10 years now almost. Um, and I have heard her talking to me. And people say, this guy's going to the loony bin, to the nut house. Um, but you have to be open. You have to admit the possibility. So it's just as you were saying, um, you just had coincidence is just another word for I'm not open to believing that you can talk to me without your lips moving, right?
It's well explained. You know what is interesting? Nature, at least we do not recognize any special languages that the apple tree has a different than a pear tree or whatever. They just, they are sending the signals and the others are receiving. It's like I said, speaking with my heart, I know your heart is receiving the message. It's not the head, it's not the English, it's not the ears. No, it's your heart. And the heart does not care. It's exactly the root of nature is the heart. This is why the machines and AI or whoever don't have a heart. And the second thing, they don't breathe. So they have no first breath in, and not the last one when you go away. You know, so there are so many aspects why the technology still is far behind us. Okay, they are faster, and what it will have. I don't know. I sent you yesterday, I think, the communication between these two AI. It was terrifying. You know, if there has been not the subtitles, and they don't even need the sound, of course.
I think part of the reason it's so terrifying is because we can never learn that language. We are excluded from it. Whereas almost every other language, I mean, we can, even Russian is possible to learn over time.
But both of you remember the old dial-up modems, which exactly has this type of language over the phone line, and they communicate almost the same way. Just we did not call it communication at the time. But today, it was even named, the video was named communication between one AI and the other AI.
That doesn't bother me. It does not bother me that I do not speak the machine language. What bothers me is that is changing the world, my world, that is changing my world, and people don't know how to uh, either fear it or understand its capabilities or what it's doing to us and the way that we communicate. I don't need to be able to speak the language. I just need to be able to see how it's changing our life, right? Like like that thing. A text message, instead of looking at somebody face to face and having a communication, I see how that's changing our life. So I don't care if understand when machines talk.
You know, I have here yesterday an inventor, a guy with his 60s, and he bring a quite interesting new type of turbine. Hard to explain, it doesn't matter. But he looked at me, he tried to explain to me, I do not understand this stuff, but I see that what I have never seen before, and I have seen a lot of things, so I feel the innovations. And I tell him, I don't need to know how it works. He was surprised because he would like to give me more the technical details. And say, I don't need it. I need something very different from you. I need from you to say, it generates so much electricity if you put it under the stream of water with this size, and the business model will be like this. And it was a language which he does not speak. So he was able to present the technical stuff, but he did not understand that if he would like to be successful and sell, nobody is interested in his technical language. He needs to use a different language. And I think the disadvantage of humans is that we created so many languages, not only English, Czech, Danish, but technical, computer, whatever, doctor. We spoke about it many times. There are so many. Official 7,000 languages, English, Czech, and so on. But it's unofficial versions. I think there will be hundreds of thousands, because every group speak their own specific language. And we have 2 minutes.
In a way, these languages they're like dialects.
Yeah. But in some way, the dialects are so specific that they really turn up to the completely ununderstandable language for anybody else. If you go to doctor and he start with all these Latin names and so on, no idea at all. The question is it the intention? I don't know. If it's not an intention for me as a patient not to understand, why they use it? I think it's intentionally.
And that's why when I would get together with a client to plan their strategic plan, and so we try to envision the future, I can't do that by myself. I need a dozen other people or 6 or 8 other people in the room with the same intention to add what I can't think of. No, even AI cannot. It's funny. I'm in another Zoom group, and we're studying AI and different applications for it, and different platforms for it. And they come out different. You ask one platform a question, and then ask the other platform. They're different. And so there's no one truth. So we need to tap into as many as possible.
Okay. As you said, unfortunately, we can influence a lot of things, but we cannot stop Zoom counter, which indicates 1 minute left. I would like to thank you again. You know, at the beginning was something very strange, a foreign language, one term, but at the end, it was fascinating discussion. Again, and it proves that language is a living creature and that we should really value what we have, not to look for what we can buy, but utilize what we really have. Have a nice time, free of waste and wasting in all its forms. Stay safe, be free, be human, and let's meet again on Země next week. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.